Okay, okay, everybody ready? I'm going to talk about ByHeart and hopefully explain it in a way that is succinct and that everybody can understand. The first thing that I need to explain, though, is that in formula, there's always going to be a fat, a protein, and a carb. Okay? Well, let's start with the protein. Fat, protein, carb, those are the macronutrients, but there's also the micronutrients, which are going to be the vitamins and minerals. Okay, so let's start with the macronutrients. That's probably the most significant change we're going to see in ByHeart. Okay, let's start with the protein. ByHeart is going to use organic grass-fed cow's milk protein. That's what it's going to be, just like Bobby does, right? That has the same thing. Grass-fed organic. So that's already a plus. Now, when we talk about protein, I want just to explain that we've got intact proteins and partially hydrolyzed proteins. The best way to understand that is the intact proteins are intact and the partially hydrolyzed are broken down into smaller, more digestible pieces. So a partially hydrolyzed protein usually goes better for a baby who's having some digestive issues. With a baby who has full-on allergy, then we're looking at a fully hydrolyzed protein. All right, so that's how we break it down. If you look at like the regular formula out there on the market, Enfamil, Similac, Gerber, they're all going to have variations that have intact proteins and partially hydrolyzed proteins. Doesn't say that on the label. Instead, you'll see words like gentle or soothe or comfort. Okay, so words like that typically mean that the protein has been partially hydrolyzed. Those words could also mean that they reduced the lactose, but I'll get to that in a second. So let me read to you here. ByHeart, right, is, so I already established, right, that it's going to be a grass-fed organic cow's milk. But the way they break it down is they're going to have some intact protein, partially hydrolyzed whey protein, some intact whey protein, and the rest of it's going to be alpha lactobumin, which is a first, I believe. There's no other formula out there that's using that. Now, that's a protein that we most commonly see in breast milk. Like 30% of breast milk is that. So that's kind of a big deal. And that might be something that helps babies digest this milk more easily, like making it a little bit more similar in composition to breast milk. That combined with that partially hydrolyzed whey could mean that this could be a more digestible milk for your baby, but we don't know. It's all new. I'm looking for your feedback and the experiences that you have with your babies. All right, so let's go on. So that's the protein. Now, oh, sorry, and there's one more thing that they added into the protein, and that's lactoferrin. And that's also something that is found in breast milk, and is known to improve iron absorption. So that's really interesting. And it also works for the immune system, so it actually decreases infection. So that's found in breast milk. They put it in ByHeart. That is also new for almost all formulas, but I will tell you that Enfamil, the Inspire label, a lot of people don't know what that means. What is Inspire? They have this like sparkly new label and it's more expensive. That's why, because it contains this lactoferrin. Does that mean ByHeart is going to be expensive? You bet it's going to be, but we'll get to that in a moment. All right. Now, the other thing that's really interesting about this formula is the fat. Okay, so let me explain. When formula is being made, the fat is typically removed from the protein because toxins like pesticides and other toxins that may be found in dairy, in dairy milk, just regular dairy cows that are not organic or grass-fed, they are absorbed in the fat. So that's fat soluble toxins. And we don't like that. We don't want that in a baby's formula. So that's been typically is removed, and then the fat gets replaced by a combination of vegetable fats, vegetable oils like palm oil, safflower oil, sunflower seed oil, and so forth. What's another one? Oh, soy oil. So this is interesting that ByHeart is going to have no palm oil, no soy oil, and most of the fat is going to come from the actual cow's milk cream. Yes, you heard me right. There's like one formula in Europe that does that. I think it's Kendamil. I'm not exactly sure, but we don't see that typically here. And even Bobby didn't put cream or actual cow's milk in their formula. So that's a big deal. Now, they couldn't make it all cream because that didn't meet the standard requirements, whatever. So there will be some vegetable oil mixed into this, okay? So it's going to be 1 part the actual cow's fat, the cream, and then it's going to be a little bit of, it's a combination of sunflower, safflower, rapeseed oil, and something else. It's on a different page. I can't remember. Coconut oil. That's it. Yeah. Coconut oil. So that's really interesting. Though that's going to be sort of a game changer, I think. There's also going to be also naturally included omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. So there's a lot of good stuff going on in this formula. And it's the first formula on the market in America that has no palm or soy oil in it. So that's a big deal. Now, going to the carb, all right? So in regular formula, the carbohydrate is coming from lactose. That's a milk sugar. And ByHeart will have full lactose. And that's sort of typical. That's nothing new. That's nothing that like anyone's tooting their horn about. But it's still, when you look at like the way it's constructed, that's how it breaks down. We have the protein, we have the fat, and the lactose. Now here's the not great news. If your baby has any kind of sensitivity or a dairy allergy, this is not going to be the right formula. It's got full lactose and it's got not enough hydrolyzation in the protein that will probably meet the needs. Certainly not for a baby who needs a hypoallergenic formula. For those of you whose babies might be on Alimentum or Nutramigen and so forth, this probably will not be a good fit, just letting you know. Then there's a whole group of you who are probably on a more like a gentle comfort soothe style formula. One of my favorites is Similac Pro Total Comfort, right? So that's got a partially hydrolyzed protein and it's got reduced lactose. If that's the formula that your baby is doing well on, this probably won't be a good leap. But I mean, you could always try it. In the words of Dr. Bridget Young, the pediatric nutritionist, and I will quote her or link her video below here because she goes into this in a lot more depth. She always says, look, if it's working, if your baby is doing well, thriving and growing and so forth, don't switch it up. Even though you think that there may be some formula out there that's got some things in it that you would prefer or be drawn to, like organic milk, or maybe this idea of the fat coming right directly from the cow's milk, leave well enough alone. That's kind of her advice. But obviously, you're going to do what you want to do. The other big thing is the expense. I think it's like $40 a can. It's a lot. It's a lot. Now, for those of you who are like mostly breastfeeding and only occasionally giving formula, that might be a perfect fit, because if you're full on formula feeding, that's going to be a lot. Okay? If money is no object, go for it. But for most people, it's a bit much. All right, is there anything else? Oh, so another interesting thing about this formula, they did their own clinical trials, which must have cost a fortune. But I guess they needed to. They needed to kind of show some of the results. And now, one of the things that they saw, important to note that this formula ByHeart has the lowest allowable iron that any formula in America can have. Okay, now you know that conversation comes up a lot with the European formulas who they just don't give, they don't put as much iron in their formula. We put a lot of iron. It looks like the studies may be showing that perhaps we put too much iron in. But the jury is still out, so I don't have an answer for you on that. But it is noteworthy that this formula and Bobby chose to lower their iron amounts. There's got to be some data there that's indicating that that's the direction we're going to go in instead of these very high iron levels that Similac and Enfamil and Gerber have. All right. So one of the things that they noticed about babies who were on ByHeart is that there was less spitting up. Okay, so that's kind of noteworthy. And that also they were able to see that they were utilizing the nutrients more efficiently. So that meant that they were having more efficient weight gain without ingesting so much formula. In other words, the volume went down, but the weight gain and the milestones and everything else that we measure in infant thriving were the same. So that's going to be really interesting to see. And of course, you're not going to be able to tell with your own baby as an individual. You have to look at a bunch of babies and kind of like compare notes. So that's sort of an interesting thing as well. Just think about that, utilizing nutrients more efficiently. All right, so that's kind of the simple wrap up. Let's see, is there anything else? No, blank page. I hope that was helpful. I'll continue to make posts as I learn more about this formula. Thank you. Please comment with your observations if you can.